In her recent article, Sandra Schneiders recounts the advice given to her by a friend as she was beginning her graduate studies many years ago. Remember one thing, he said, don't ever refuse an invitation. Shortly after reading her article, I was invited to offer a reflection for this feast of our Holy Mother. And while I was a bit trepidatious, recalling the advice of Sandra's friend gave me the nudge I needed to say yes. In today's gospel, Jesus offers the invitation of a lifetime. If anyone is thirsty, let them come to me. The journey to this inexhaustible fount of living water, who is Christ, begins with this profound invitation. The Teresian community is united by this very invitation of Christ to be with him. While the invitation to come and explore the depths of Carmel may have come through the voice of another, we are responding to an invitation from Christ. And it is this relationship to Christ that holds the Teresian community together and relativizes all other claims on our lives. It is Christ who is the center of the community. In her writings, Teresa emphasizes the priority of Christ's invitation, as well as the costliness of following this call. Sharing from the depths of her own experience, Teresa describes this relationship with Jesus as one of intimate friendship. We are called to be good friends of Christ and good friends of one another. The Teresian community is one in which relationship with Christ is the defining characteristic. If anyone is thirsty, let them come to me. Teresa names this thirst desire. Teresa's life is swept up in a whirlwind of desire for Christ that energized her to leave the comfort of family and friends and her life at the Monastery of the Incarnation to found communities of women and men whose thirst for God was also the primary motivator of their lives. We are propelled by our desire for God to respond to the invitation of Christ to come on the journey to the fount of living water. Teresa is often pictured with a walking stick, which serves as a reminder to me that we are on a journey. In The Way of Perfection, Teresa describes how one reaches this fount of living water, how God satisfies it and makes it grow in the things pertaining to the service of God. The fuel for this journey is unceasing prayer. All harm comes to us from not keeping our eyes fixed on Jesus. All I ask of you is that you go within yourself and look at him. In her communities, Teresa emphasized the importance of the eremitical life. All one need to do is go into solitude and look at him within oneself, and not turn away from so good a guest. For the style of life we aim to follow is not just that of nuns, but of hermits. Teresa implores us to do what we can do to dispose ourselves to receive God. For contemplative prayer is about looking and receiving. Over and over again, Teresa tells us that there are many paths that lead to the fount of living water, and that the Lord will work with us in whatever way is best suited for us at that time. She writes, "Do not fear, sisters, to travel these paths, for in prayer there are many. Some souls profit by one path, and others by another." While there are many paths, Teresa cautions that the terrain along which God leads contemplatives is often rough and uneven. We will undoubtedly experience the aridity and barrenness of the desert. We will trip in holes we didn't see. There will be places that require us to pull many weeds and clear thick brush, and we will draw bucket after bucket of water, sometimes feeling like there may only be a few drops in our bucket. There will also be lush and fertile ground, filled with beautiful flowers, delicious fruits, torrents of water, and an array of colors. And Teresa reminds us that through it all, God will always be with us, enfolding us in God's infinite generosity, mercy, and love. Along this journey, Teresa indicates that there are 3 virtues that form the foundation for prayer. They are the road signs guiding our way to the fount of living water. As I describe each one, envision how these road signs might look along the path you are traveling. And if you're anything like Teresa, who suffered from not being able to form images in her mind, just do the best you can. Love of neighbor. Love without self-interest. Show tenderness to all. Speak with the friends of God. There is nothing annoying that is not suffered easily by those who love one another. Love each sister uniquely. Remember, everything that is suffered with love is healed again. Humility. This is the main practice that embraces all the others. Be content along the path which God is leading you. True humility is content with what is received. Know that you are dependent on God. Humility does not disturb or disquiet or agitate. It comes with peace, delight, and calm. Detachment. Detachment has as its purpose the gift of the self to the Lord. It provides the freedom of spirit necessary to surrender oneself to Christ. Teresa writes, "Everything I have advised you about in the way of perfection is directed toward the complete gift of ourselves to the Creator, the surrender of our wills to His, and detachment from creatures. We must give our wills entirely to the Lord in order to drink from this fount." I knew someone once who found herself on the path to serve God through a lifetime commitment as a religious. As the time was drawing near for her to surrender her will entirely to the Lord, she felt hesitant and a bit apprehensive. She knew she needed to focus on Christ, the treasure, above all else. And slowly, through her prayer, the Holy Spirit began to gift her with the ability to see the other significant relationships in her life, like pieces of a puzzle, finding a place in right relationship to her primary commitment to Christ. Christ is always the first piece of the puzzle, and everything else is oriented to this primary and essential relationship. Our first reading described this beautifully. I esteemed wisdom more than power, riches, health, or beauty. Compared with her, all gold is a pinch of sand, and beside her, silver ranks as mud. While the paths on which we are traveling may vary, all of our paths are nurtured and supported by the life of the community. Community is the field or milieu where we as Carmelites live out our commitment to Christ. It is the field through which all of our paths traverse. While community has certainly offered challenging moments, it is your witness and fidelity, my sisters, day in and day out, over many years, that shows me that this life is indeed worth the surrender of the totality of my will to embrace fully the path upon which Jesus has so carefully led. Teresa reminds us that we should give ourselves to him with complete determination, and that he doesn't give himself completely until we give ourselves completely. Let us return to the fount. Teresa recounts numerous times in her writings that Christ is very close. She says, get used to him being near to you, and you don't have to shout in order for him to hear you. The fount isn't to be found off in the distance. It is located within the depths of our being and in the center of the community. Connie has worked extensively with the expansion of the soul in relation to Teresa's teaching. God expands the soul to make it more and more capable of containing God. God gives the totality of God's self, but we need to be stretched in order to be able to receive more of this living water. There is a way in which I think the same is true of the community. Many people come to this well to drink of the living water, and I see that the community, assisted by the Holy Spirit, stretches and digs a deeper well by our fidelity to prayer, our celebration of the Eucharist, and our living together peacefully in community. We live this life. We commit the totality of our lives to dig this well so that others may drink. May we continue to allow the Holy Spirit to inflame the deepest desire of our hearts, and may we always accept Jesus' invitation to come and drink.